them until Thursday, so don't get any
Thursday?
big ideas.
How are we gonna pay our bills?
I don't know.
They're due by Thursday.
You'll have to call your creditors and tell them that you work for the town of Clayton, and they'll probably understand.
They probably will.
I suppose I should get my mask, huh? Gosh, I just keep forgetting that. You done?
No, I haven't
Oh.
started.
You need a pen?
No, I got.
Okay.
I'm just reviewing the other items.
Does anybody here like fudge? Because somebody brought this to me and I'm just not a fudge eater.
All right.
It's just like putting sugar.
Yeah.
All right, it's 9:31. I'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. We'll stand and say the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Okay, so Jenny handed us the claim docket for the end of the year bills. Anybody have any questions on any of this?
That I just lost it. Norton Antivirus. Is that a yearly subscription?
Yes.
I thought so. Okay.
I'll make a motion if we accept them as they are.
Okay, I have a first motion,
I'll second that.
second motion. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Did you have an order you wanted to go in the rest of this stuff? Or you want to do salary ordinance next?
Salary ordinance is fine.
Salary ordinance? So,
It's all typed up the way, Graham had given it to me,
okay.
and I believe it is correct.
Yes.
You need a motion?
Yes.
I make a motion. We accept the salary ordinance.
Okay, I have a first motion
Second.
and a second. All in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Okay. Salary ordinance is passed. Graham also sent a document for retaining him as legal counsel for another year. Did everybody get a chance to look over that?
Same one we already got, right?
He did change one aspect on being able to terminate the agreement on the last page, so pretty standard stuff for ending a contract.
I got some sign, Jenny.
Okay. Here, put that in the minute.
Did you need to look over the hard copy, or did you look over the one
I
by email?
I saw it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alright. And then, what was the next one, Jenny, what else
Are
do
we
we?
gonna do a first and a second to accept it, or are we just gonna, is it just?
For this one?
Yeah,
Probably
for
should.
grant.
Yeah,
I'll make a motion, we accept.
okay, first motion,
Contract.
I'll second.
second that.
And then I
And-
have a transfer of funds.
Okay, and all in favor of accepting Graham's retention letter?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, motion carried. And transfer of funds, alright?
Mhm. You can pass that. You can pass that down to him. This is just paying bills, end of the year bills that there's not enough money to pay them. You wanna read it, or you want me to read it?
You can read,
You go ahead, Steve.
or, yeah, either one.
This is a transfer of funds in the general fund from repairs and maintenance to electric, because, you know, we upped all the electric, so we ran out of money. It was $824.99. And then, Social Security and Medicare tax from dues and school fees, $28.59. And from town marshal training, $295 to purchase and renovation. Matt bought new cameras for the town hall, 2 of them here and 1 down at the sewer plant. The sewer plant is coming out of sewer plant money, so that's $295 for $1,148.58.
Alright, any questions about transfer of funds?
Nope.
Okay. Need a motion?
I make a motion to accept the
All right.
transfer funds.
First motion,
I'll second.
and a second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. All opposed? Here it goes again.
Is that noise?
That's the, there's a squirrel in the furnace fan.
Is it early?
Huh?
Sounds like a chainsaw.
Huh.
Might be called Quonset, come look at it.
You probably can't hear it.
Nope.
The furnace fan is making a horrible grinding sound.
Oh, really?
You can hear it coming out of that jug right there.
But,
I'll look into it.
Sounds like a fluttering or something, vibration.
alright, so next one was, what else do we have?
You wanna do the president and vice president at the first, at the January meeting? Since Diane's not here,
I know Leanne couldn't make it today, so yeah, it'd probably be better if we do that when
Okay.
she's here. I know she had commitments at the floral shop that she couldn't move around.
That's all I have.
Okay.
I don't know if you guys have anything else or not. We did get a copy back of the audit, so I can make copies if everybody wants one.
I believe I emailed everybody
Yeah.
too, so if you had a chance to look over that. The other thing that I had emailed and wanted to talk about was our job posting. Has everybody had a chance to kind of look over
Yeah, I
what
did,
they
yeah.
want for a job posting and, or changes to the one that I put together, which I changed that one sentence about the vehicle fee from the $250 a month to $250 a year, since that was, if we're interested in still keeping that in there even, I know that that's not something that Dan ever wanted, so we, but if we have other changes or recommendations, and then we can get that posted with the Republican and maybe on the AIM website and the university. Go ahead, John.
I was gonna say, by looking at that, on here on health insurance and life insurance, you know, no one else, we've never done that for anybody before. So I don't know that we have the funds, especially since you haven't budgeted for that.
And usually that's kind of I know with the ambulance service I worked at, we decided to get that for our employees, and that wasn't an easy negotiation. So we don't provide any health insurance
No,
for you.
but we
Kenny?
keep everybody part-time so that we don't have to do any kind of health or any kind of insurance.
So you're considered part-time? No?
No,
Oh.
I'm elected, I'm not an employee.
Well, no, but I mean, the town ought to provide
They
health and
provide
life.
my retirement, but that's all
Oh.
they provide.
Huh. Alright, so you're just covered with health
Well, I can
insurance?
get that out of them. I'm just what?
You get your health insurance,
No, I pay for my.
privately and, seems like since you work full-time here, even though you are an elected official, I would be,
Well, I mean.
my thought would be that the town would provide you with health insurance. The same with anybody else would be doing a full-time hours, I know.
Yeah. But we've always just kept everybody part-time so that we didn't have to.
Okay,
Doesn't AIM offer a health and, don't they have some kind of health and life
Probably.
thing that they provide to towns?
It's just gonna be hard when we didn't budget for anything like that.
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah.
Yep. Well, and that was it was in that one that I stole off of the AIM website. They had a job posting for another town manager, and I just stole it and started editing, modifying it some. But that's a challenge. I know for the employees that we had at the ambulance, trying to get them a policy that had under a $5,000 deductible, and
Oh, yeah.
it was hard.
Yeah.
It was especially.
Matt even said that his insurance, I think at Danville's like $750 a month.
Yeah. Yeah, it's tough to find, and especially if you had a company with 10,000 employees, insurances are falling over themselves to try and provide you insurance.
Right.
So they'll give you good deals, but if you have 2 or 3 employees, they really stick it to you.
Yeah.
But well, we can take that out for now and get rid of the insurance part in health and life. Would the perf still be applicable, or
I'm not sure.
okay?
I'd have to look and see.
That is a nice thing when I was with the
But
fire department.
that's something else that you have to budget for, cause the
Right.
perf is like
Free.
$250 a month. But they pay all of mine, I don't have to pay anything.
Yeah,
I think if they didn't pay it, I think the town would pay $195 and I would pay $52 or something like that. But they put it in the thing in the beginning, since they had never offered me perf for all those years, that's why they pay
right.
my whole amount. I'll have to look into that.
Okay.
And probably you need to look at the amount you put as the pay. Cause if you say it's a part-time job, then you can go back down to, I only have a, appropriation thing with me, to like the 36,000 or whatever, for a starter.
Now, in the job posting, do you think we need to separate out like that? There's going to be money from the general fund and money from the wastewater fund, or do you think
No, I
that
don't think
matters in the job posting?
No, I don't think that matters.
Okay. I didn't know if that was a
Yeah, I don't think
standard
that
that you guys typically
But
do.
do we need to have that clarified on the back end of things?
Well, and the thing is too, because his was always a contract, his never was in the salary ordinance.
Right, it was different.
And it's not in the salary ordinance here for next year.
Right.
So, there's a lot of, I don't think this is something you're gonna be able to go out tomorrow and
Right.
post it.
I know, which is baby steps.
Yeah.
Each of these things we'll have to take, small bite-sized chunks out of it and try to
Yeah.
figure out. But so
Maybe everybody can look at it and see what they think is year
Yeah.
or something.
But we can easily take out the insurance part now, so we'll just strike that for health and life. Do we wanna take out the vehicle reimbursement benefit also? I switched it to $250 a year, but do we wanna just strike it altogether, or?
Maybe we should put, benefits and something other to be discussed or something like that.
Negotiable.
Negotiable to be discussed or something like that, yeah.
Any other thoughts on it so far? We can come back on our January meeting is the 14th, right? 14th? So we can come back on the 14th with everybody's input on what we want for that. And then discuss where we're gonna post that. Like I said, AIM they have a job posting, page on their website. We can send it to the Republican.
What's available out there right now? Have you looked, I haven't looked. Is there other towns hiring?
I don't know.
On the website for AIM had one other posting for a town manager, and it was like Camden, Indiana, or I don't remember now, but it was it's probably a size about 2,000 in population, so about double our size. And they had, so that was the one I stole that from, and then modified it, edited it. But and then Dan sent an email this morning with contact information, people that he has, gotten to work with and has projects with in town. So if everybody kind of makes note of that, so that they kind of know who's doing what in town with the different projects. He has said he's available by phone for questions in the future, so he's not disappearing. So if next month, middle of the next month, we have a question about a project, he's willing to let us call him and pick his brain. Or
Are you okay with leaving the login information to your laptop?
Pardon?
Are you okay with leaving the login?
Yeah, there's no password set up on it.
Okay.
I'll walk you through it before you leave here if you want to show you what's in there and
Okay.
where everything is.
All right.
Most of the forms that we use have been created and they're in Word. And then of course I got files out the wazoo.
Are they all over the place like my laptop? I got them everywhere.
What's that?
Are they all over the place like on my laptop? I've got them everywhere.
I usually create files for certain things
Okay, good.
and pretty easy to find. A lot of them are there's a town of Clayton file and you'll find most of that stuff in there, wastewater treatment facility, streets and roads contractor estimate, just permits issued in 2020.
So organized.
Well, probably organized better than
As
my
you have been.
computer. But everything's there. Should be easy to find. Everything's backed up on an external hard drive, and then it's also backed up through Norton LifeLock, so it's in two different places. And then of course we have all the paper files in there. So should be pretty easy for anybody to find. A lot more than I got when I started this job. I got a file about like that of old permits that were issued. That's pretty much it. So whoever steps in should have a pretty good idea of what's going on.
They're here. Do you mind opening the door? Well, before GRW gets started, this was kind of our first year together, this makeup of town council, and I wanted to say thank you for everybody's hard work. I know we've conquered a lot of challenges this year, and I know we have a lot of challenges next year, but I just appreciate the teamwork and the interaction that we've had on a professional level of what we've accomplished this year.
I do have one thing before GRW gets started too. Actually, too, this is the ordinance for the Penner rezone that you guys approved. I need your signature on it, and then I need Jenny's signature on it.
Okay.
Before you leave, the other thing you got about carrying money forward for streets and sidewalks, that was in that email I sent out. That's all taken care of?
No, I haven't even done it yet.
Okay. I just wanna make sure we do. Some stuff in there next year.
I've got a question before Dan leaves. Whatever happened on the old Stockwell building? I knew everybody was talking about not having condemned it so bad, but the next thing you know, there's businesses in there.
There's what?
We have businesses in there, so what happened between being condemned to all of a sudden people have businesses in there?
It wasn't that part of the building that was in bad shape. It's actually one they're working on now. They got a remodel permit and remodeled it, repaired it.
Thanks.
I was just wondering, because there for a while, we get it shut down, tore down or something, and then.
When something done with it, and something got done with it. And I issued an address for the little block building. And that's a weird setup over there because there are actually 4 buildings all on one parcel. And normally when you, or you're on the same parcel, it would be like 4881 Iowa, Suite 1, Suite 2, Suite 3, Suite 4. Well, before I ever got involved, they had already issued 3 addresses. 4881, 4883, and 4885. They're wanting to do something with that block building, which is the building in the best shape. So I worked with Hendricks County address coordinator, and we issued it another address of 23 East Michigan. So addressing, you'll find in Clayton can be pretty flaky in areas. It's not at its utmost, that's for sure. And you'll find that all over the place.
Does this do these new people need to have a sewer bill sent to them?
What's that?
Does this new building, whatever, they need a sewer bill?
Yeah, well,
And then do they get 4 different sewer bills?
they will.
Okay.
Eventually, each address should have one, but right now, the only one that's occupied is the 4881. This Gypsy's Den, or what's it called?
Yeah.
Yeah, Gypsy Den?
Yeah.
That's 4881.
Pardon?
Gypsy Den is 4881.
Mm-hmm. Then the building next to it is 4883, and what they're wanting to do is demo part of that. They want to leave the front, the facade on it, so that it still blends in with everything, but they're gonna take the back half down and rebuild put another building in there, basically.
Hmm.
So, And then, 4885, they've been working on for quite a while, and they're still working on it. There's a lot of work to do on that.
So they assigned 4883 to the, or 4881 to the corner, but then the one south of it has a higher number?
Yeah, see, it seems like it ought to be going the other
Right.
direction.
Yeah. Yeah, it's, one example, our town garage doesn't even have an address.
As you go down 39,
Really?
49,
Yeah.
86, it gets higher, because you start at Danville, 36
Oh, 'cause
is the
higher when it
south
goes south.
boundary.
Yeah, that's the.
So it
Okay.
get higher, that's right.
Yeah, because when you're in the 5,000 block when you get down by the library, so.
Okay.
Did you hear what he said about the town building doesn't even have an address?
Town garage doesn't.
Town garage doesn't have an address.
Oh, okay. I know the houses across the street from me are, there's 120 is here, and then Rick's house is like 89 or 88, and then
86.
there's 100 on this side of him. So it's like,
And you can look on Beacon and select the address points, and I can show you, and it pops up in red what 911 has as an address. If somebody called for, you know, the fire department or an ambulance, that's what they're gonna see. So you can actually go through, and we've changed a bunch of them, and I can tell you that's not always well received by people when they've been in a property for a long time and all their bills are under one address, their credit cards, driver's license and everything else, and then you come in and say, guess what? Your address doesn't work, so we're gonna have to change it. So then they have to go through all of the rigmarole of getting their personal information changed. So when it happens, people can get upset.
yeah, I bet.
But I think the crucial thing is that address point for 911. So when they call somebody, they know where they're going. Town garage, you know, not like it's occupied by somebody. People are very rarely down there, it seems like, so, except, you know, especially this time of year.
John's there all the time.
What's that?
John's there all the time. I see his truck there.
Across the street, that's my parking spot.
We had to change the, food pantry's address as well, but that wasn't, I mean, there was still some hoops they had to jump through, but it wasn't as, you know, it's not like they had a bunch of credit cards or utility bills and stuff they had to deal with, so. It's, and there's still a lot of work to do. And all that contact information for the address coordinator, the engineer, surveyor's office, all that stuff's in the computer too, so if you need to contact somebody, you at least have somebody to email or call.
Okay.
All right. Well, Darren, welcome.
Hello. Joe Tierney is like behind me by like 5-10 minutes, so he'll be here as well. He's going to give you a pretty thorough update on the sewer rehab project. That's going to be, I mean, we're going to be bidding that, advertising that out for the contractors next week. So he'll give you an update on that. My end on the wastewater treatment plant side of things, I submitted to George Burnett a preliminary design set of drawings. I did not send one to the council. I'd be happy to do that as well, but I figured his input is pretty critical since he'll be operating the plant. It's basically, we're on track on the wastewater plant side, just to, hopefully by the end of the month of January, our goal is to try to get, submit for permit, construction permit. And then that kind of stops the project after that point, until the next funding round or whatever we decide to do as we agreed on earlier in the process here. So we're on track. I'm gonna meet with George actually after this meeting today, go over to the wastewater plant and get some more input from him on some items that are still kind of out in the air, or up in the air. But to just progress on and have a meeting with him maybe the next couple of weeks, once he's had time to digest these plans and go over more detailed information with him and see if he wants to change anything that we've done or better way to skin a cat kind of a thing. So we're on the wastewater plant side again, we're on track. And then there's that spur off project for the emergency plant repairs that we're doing for the north package plant. That we're gonna put, that's to kind of refinish the metals again. The north plant, as Dan mentioned in prior meetings, that's the heart of your plant. It's the bigger unit, it's the newer unit, it's the one that takes the brunt of the flow. So we're gonna try to rehab the metals, repaint them, recoat them, replace some miscellaneous items that are kind of getting to a corroded state right now, and put that as part of the emergency repairs project. And we'll bid that out. Actually, not bid. I guess we'll request quotes for that because the budget on that amount will be less than municipal public bidding law requirements under the $150,000 mark. So that'll kind of go concurrent with the sewer rehab. So the sewer rehab project will be bid out to local contractors, and we'll send out quotes. Hey, George. We'll send out quotes to local contractors for the repair work at the north plant, the north tank. So hopefully by early February, mid-February at the very latest, we'll have all the numbers in hand, and we'll be able to make an informed decision on what we want to do. And the whole goal here is to get all those numbers, or all those amounts in and agreed upon, and then that'll be part of the loan closing that takes place by the end of March. So as far as I know, we're on track with all the scheduling that we've been telling you guys from the beginning. But that's kind of, in a nutshell, the wastewater plant. George, I was just telling you about the licensure, so that's all you care about.
One thing I'd like to add to this is that ordinance to rezone the Pinner property, that frees him up now to be able to go to IDM and get his permitting done. So that's something that's gonna need to be followed up on too. Because I think things that are gonna happen here and what's going on with Mr. Pinner, but they're gonna have to work together because you're still gonna need a transfer mechanism to get sludge to him and a way for him to get gray water to us. And that's all gonna, it's gonna be up to IDM basically to decide what they wanna see happen there. So his permitting through IDM is important.
Okay.
That's just my opinion.
Sure. I know I did have a question on the collection system rehab. At some point, somebody mentioned that laterals might be a problem, which that's the section of pipe that goes from a private residence across private property and then ties in to our public sterile or sanitary sewer line. So is that are we gonna run into major complications with that, or is that?
Again, Joe will probably have to give a better feedback than me on that because he's been intimately involved in that project. My understanding from knowing about the project a little bit, we're replacing a select few number of sewer laterals on the project. I think Dan gave a short list of maybe 5 that were known. We may have discovered a few more during the overall review of things. So we are replacing a lateral on those particular lines or locations from the main line, the sewer line, to the property line, right away or whatever that line is. Then we're going to demarc that by putting a clean out there. But we're not going all the way to the residence itself. We're just replacing the part that's within the city's or the town's domain. But we're not doing a whole bunch of them.
Okay.
Laterals certainly have an infiltration component to them. But this is sort of this will be a phased along process here. We're trying to get the bang for our buck on this immediate round, and then through just regular O&M on an annual basis. Because again, I think Baker Tilly set up a budget for you guys to do ongoing maintenance. You guys continue that process forward.
The other part that was mentioned was in the part of the line that cuts across the farm where crops will be growing. And that we'll probably have to demolish or destroy some crops while we work on that. But would there be huge detriments to the project to wait until those crops are not growing? Or, I mean, I know they said it was only 2 acres worth of crops to worry about.
The crop damage
The
thing.
farm.
The crop
farm
damage.
area.
Yeah.
Do you wanna speak to that, Joe?
Well, yeah, I mean, I guess that was one of the items I wanted to point out, is that, and get your guys' opinion on it, is that, we are calling for that line to be lined from basically down at the treatment plant and go all the way across that field. And the way the schedule is, we would be, we're trying to close on that loan before the end of March, and then we would give the contractor the go-ahead. And so, and I think we got 90 days till substantial completion, 120 days till final. So it'd be April, May, June, July. You'd be right in that planning season. So, so what you're asking is how do we mitigate that, right? Or can we get around that?
Yeah, I was just curious if
Yeah.
is that possible to swing that part of the project to where it's not
I suppose
going
we
to be
could,
a,
we could put something
big
in there
cost.
where that you'd have to come back and do that at a later date or something like that, but that would, unless we don't wanna delay the whole construction of that project, right? I mean,
If you delayed it, you're talking about now, December or January of.
Yeah, right, 'cause I mean, they don't- right, they-
21, you could do it.
right, they wouldn't be,
If
they
the
wouldn't,
crops are in there, it's usually September, October, November when they're harvesting.
right. So, I mean, I'm just trying to think, what we could do, if we let the project go and say, do this, but come back at a later date. The problem is we probably get hit with another mobilization charge to come back out there and do the work again.
Well, when lining the pipes, how much room do you need to,
Well, they gotta get their, they'll have to get out there, cause I think it's a far enough run where they'll have to go up, at least in one of the manholes in the field. They usually shoot backwards and forward. They can do one down by the plant and go one way, and they can come up on the other side and come back, but they're gonna have to get out in that field.
so
A couple
basically,
of
that
places.
should be Brenneman's field you're talking about.
Yeah, Penner, I think, owns the property.
Yeah.
And that speaks to one of the issues, there is an easement out there. There's a 25-foot easement. We researched that it was recorded back in March 16th of 1972. It's a 25-foot easement, but it's not quite around the pipe. It's skewed, it's not quite, the pipe is not exactly all in that easement. It's close, it's very close, but it's not quite. I think the intent was that pipe would be in that easement, and it is close.
Is that something that, maybe talk to the farmer, cause now they plant, they use that GPS and exactly they can plant where they wanna plant. And maybe they can just not plant in that area there, maybe be compensated for that small.
Well, and that's what we were thinking, is that, Rick Miller, one of our guys, that he's a farmer, his dad's a farmer, and we were kind of talking through that whole thing, and, depending on, again, it kind of comes down to, well, as long as the contractor is careful, he's gonna damage some of that if they plant there, and, we were thinking, well, it's probably $1,000-$2,000, depending on what exactly happens there. But to your point, if we were to suspend that piece and have them come back, you'd probably pay that or more in charges of mobilizing and remobilizing, that kind of thing.
sure, okay.
I do think it would probably be worth, Mr. Penner and Mr. Brenneman to talk to them about it, so they're not surprised by it, Because to your point, if they go up, would they rather not plant it, or would they go ahead and just plant it like normal and then try to, keep the contractor into a certain corridor so he doesn't, or he minimizes his damage? But they should know, because if they don't know and the guy shows up out there, they're gonna go, what the heck's going on here,
Sure.
So that's probably something we should do here in the near future. So, So I don't know where I came in, was that the first, I brought some, let me see here. I brought a little status report, that was one of the items, so if you want, I'll hand this out, we can just use this as a basis of discussion. I mean, you just hit on quite a few of the items. Thank you. Yeah. And I'll hand out some plans too, but, yeah. Make sure I do have my other report here. Yep. Now these plans, these will, in the final document, be in the actual spec document. We're not gonna have separate plans, in fact, they'll actually be right in there, so if you wanna follow along. So I'll just work down through this status report. And what I did is I basically took the one I sent back in early December and updated it. And on the second page, I have some items, item number 3, where it talks about the things like the crop damage and that kind of thing. So if you like, I'll just kind of walk through this. It's just informational, and if you have questions, feel free. But the closed circuit TV inspection, that work's been completed. And we've reviewed all the available reports that were sent to us. I think they got most of what we asked them to do. There might be a segment or two that we didn't see, but I think most everything was done as in the original quote. And they had gone back.
So we don't need a camera inspect by the Swanson's property anymore?
We did.
I'll have to find out on that, the one, because they did go, we were, Swanson, who was, I'm gonna make sure I got Swanson's the fellow that won't let us on the property, right?
Right.
Yeah, no, we don't have that, that's not done, those 2 segments there. And I guess I need to firm up with them, if they had done the segment where the apartment building is, they were supposed to go over there and do that. I don't know if we've ever seen that one yet. But, so there may be 3 or 4 segments that they were supposed to do that we haven't seen, but for the most part, they've run through this town, and they cleaned some segments of this. And so, I'll go off of that for just a minute. In this job that's coming up, we asked the contractor, when they do the CIPP, they have to go and TV it and clean the sewer if necessary. I think, based on what we've seen and what these guys, Mason's already done, they shouldn't run into any heavy cleaning or any extra. You know, they put the cleaning, the televising, that's all part of the price to cure and place the pipe. And I'll get into that in a little bit, but this work that was just done should minimize how much extra work you have to pay for again. I mean, you know, there shouldn't be much heavy cleaning, because the segments that we're calling to be lined, we've already looked at. You know, we've looked at the TV and so forth. The general, you know, most of your pipe that we looked at is vitrified clay pipe. It's old, you know, there's some cracks in it, and we saw a couple of leaks and all that. But I mean, in general, we didn't see anything, oh, look at that, you know, this whole pipe's collapsed or something like that. For the most part, it looked like it was in, you know, decent shape. I mean, it looked like what you might expect an older sewer to look like. So I guess, you know, we saw laterals coming in, we saw some leaking down the laterals and stuff like that, but it didn't look all that crazy. You know, there wasn't, oh, we absolutely have to be here, we absolutely have to be there. I mean, it looks like, yes, the system could use some rehabilitation. The line that goes across the field there, Penner's Field, there was some cracks right at the very end as it comes into the treatment plant, and we're calling for that whole section. Part of my philosophy on this is that's the lowest part of your whole sewer system. Groundwater will get into the sewer trench and follow that sewer trench all the way down, and that's the lowest end. That you also have about, you know, as that line goes across that cornfield, there are no service laterals down there. It's just basically a line. So if we line it, we don't have the problem of that water migrating up the laterals and coming back in, at least in that section. So we're basically calling for that section to be lined all the way up, and then we're gonna rehab those manholes, and we follow that along, and I'll get into that here in just a few minutes, but, so the CCTV work has been done. As I've just given you the plans, and I've got a copy of the specs for you to look at if you wanna look at them here in a few minutes, but, so these specs are basically, we're at 95% complete, subject to what we talk about today, and any final changes that we need to make. We'll try to incorporate those before Wednesday, January 6th. And that's because we're planning on sending an advertisement to the Indy Star Monday, January 4th, for publication on Wednesday, January 6th, and then again on Wednesday, January 13th. And then we're talking about having a pre-bid here Wednesday, January 20th. And then the bid would be Groundhog Day. So,
Well, we were gonna do a pre-bid via virtual.
yeah, I guess, yeah, I'm glad you brought that up. I guess that's what we're gonna do, right? I mean, I hadn't really thought through that much yet, but.
And what we've been doing on recent projects is do virtual because of COVID. Unless you're open to having it here with a big group of people, we could do it virtually. And GRW would host a Zoom or Teams meeting, and we would send out the invitation to all plant holders and council members and town officials to attend. And we would run it.
Thank you for bringing that up, because I hadn't really thought about talking about that. That's, yeah. So if that would be, so if that's the case, you know, we'll I think we've already got that in the, it's already in the advertisement that we're gonna have the virtual pre-bid. Okay, so after the CCTV work, our crews did go back out. Rick was out here the week of the 14th, and he inspected some of the exposed manholes. We inspected or attempted to inspect 26 manholes, and there's a brief summary I shared with Dan last week. There were 10 manholes that we were able to inspect, open up and inspect, and they're listed there, C1, C2, C8A, and it goes right on down. A7 is the manhole that is by the church, and this manhole gets all the flow from town, it's an oddball manhole and in bad condition, and we're calling for it to be replaced because it's a strangely constructed manhole. So we're calling for that manhole to be replaced, and that's prompting us. We're going to need to get an INDOT permit, and I've got a couple of forms here that I'll need you to sign before the end of the meeting. Manhole A7 is the one in front of the apartment complex. We were able to open up that manhole, and we went on down through these manholes. We also found, or attempted to find, the following manholes, and there's a big long list of those. And in some cases where we found them, we marked them with a wooden lath and so forth. And our thought was those that we couldn't find or couldn't open, we would put those in the bid tab for the contractor to give us a price to find them and open them, you know. Because some of them, our guys are not able to dig up concrete or blacktop and 2 feet of dirt, you know what I mean? So we said, well, let's put those in there for what we call an additive alternate bid, so we can look at those manholes and then we can make a decision on what we need to do there. So that's really kind of the update on the manhole inspections, and then I'm switching to page 2. What we've done here, we've broken, and I'm gonna go to the plans here, if I can here, and try to explain this. We've broken the town into several sections, and, let's see if I've got this, if I can identify those for you. Oh, actually, it's in the bid tab. Did it by color. So for example, on these plans, you might notice, we're gonna have, for example, we're gonna ask him to give us a bid for what we're calling the farm field section, which is from the treatment plant up to and including manhole A10. So we're gonna, and basically our bids are gonna include cured in place pipelining, manhole rehabilitation, and if necessary, changing out a frame and cover. If there's laterals, they're gonna cut them out so they can be what we call reinstate the lateral, so the lateral can then be, that's a normal thing. And then we're also for all of this, we're asking them to give us a price to replace the lateral from the main line to the property line instead of clean out there. Now that's gonna be an additive alternate. And the thought being that if we line all these lines and the water migrates, it comes in through the laterals. So we wanna see if we could get those replaced back to the property. We don't have permission to go on people's private property. The money that you're getting for this project doesn't cover the private property work, so we can't use it there. The thing to keep in mind is we don't have enough money to do everything. We only have really about money to do 20%, 25% of the system, depending on how it bids and how we break it up. So we're kind of creating an a la carte menu, if you will, to say, give us a base bid to do certain things in the farm field, and then give us the cost to do some additive things. Then we're also having another bid, another form that's gonna be, so you got the farm field, we got what we call line A. Same thing, we want you to give us a bid to line it, rehab the manholes, and then provide us cost to reinstate these laterals. And we do that through line C, line B, and line D. So we have more in the bid than you have money to do. The idea being is that we'll see how the bids come out, and we're hoping to have as much flexibility to do as much for you as we can. It'll take half an hour to go through all that, but that's what we're asking them to do. We're asking them, it's basically all the same stuff, but we want to do it all over the town, and we want to be able to pick and choose. Well, let's do the farm field, let's do line A, and let's do line C, and let's reinstate 50 laterals. Or let's replace 50 laterals to the property line. That meets our budget, leaves us a little contingency, and that's what we would do. That kind of thing, okay? So we'll have to wait and see how the bids come out, and we go through it with you guys, and then we'll make a recommendation and so forth as to what we would pick, if you follow what I'm saying here. All right, so let me find where this put. Okay, so that's the bid documents. We got the additive alternates. I do have the NDOT permit. I need you to, before I leave here today, I've got a couple of forms. One is a consultant consent form, which just basically says we're your consultant and you agree to allow us to file this electronically for you. And then there is the permit fee waiver form, which I need you to sign. Is anybody here a notary?
Yes.
Okay, good, because it needs to be notarized. All right, so I've got those two forms that we'd like to take care of. So then, moving on to item 3 was the big one, and is the one I wanted to talk about, and kind of hitting on it a little bit. But the service lateral replacement is really the item that, I think you saw the email, you guys were saying, what does he mean by that? Well, that's what I'm talking about, is when you guys did smoke testing a couple of years ago, I think Wessler identified 5 or 6 of these laterals that were bad, and they were kind of spread all over the town. There were only 6 of them at the time. But after looking at that, there's actually just 5. They identified the same one twice. The defects they found in those particular laterals are up on private property, and we're not going to go on the private property. So we said, well, why don't we just put an additive alternate in there that they will replace the lateral from the main to the property line, and they'll set a clean out, and that demarcates where that's the demarcation between the private and the public. So it helps to improve that portion of the lateral. Doesn't do anything for the private side stuff, but we don't have money to do that anyways. So, basically after looking at this, we said, well, let's bid it as an alternate and see what the money comes out, and see if we can do as much of that, if we can do any of it or some of it, you know. That's kind of our plan, is that we're including service lateral replacement from the mainline pipe to the property line. And there's quite a few of them, you know, there's hundreds, you know, there's a couple hundred of them in there. So we'll see how they bid, and then we'll see which ones we can take and how much we can afford to do is really what I'm talking about in that particular line item, okay? Manhole frame and cover standards, I talked to Dan about this. We've got a manhole frame or cover that says sanitary sewer, enclosed lid, we use it all over the place. I was simply checking to see if you had a particular standard manhole frame and cover that you want to use. Ours is pretty standard. I don't think you have one, right? So we're going to go ahead with it. It's a Nina, and there's a model number, Nina something such. So that was more of a detailed question for Dan. We've talked about the crop damage on the Penner property. I guess that's an issue. We still got to make sure I think at the very least we need to contact them, and I don't know if you guys want to do it. It'd probably be best coming from the town, maybe to at least talk with them, let them know that that's what's going on. And then the timing on that is, Doug, as you brought up, you know. And the next bullet is the easement across the Penner property. As I mentioned to you, there is an easement down there, but it's not, some of the manholes are in it, but some are not. It's close, but it's not quite right. I mean, as far as we can tell, we've plotted it out. My surveyor says probably the best thing to do would be, if you wanted to, would be to kind of redo the easement and realign it to match up with the sewer, and then re-record it if all parties. I think our feeling would be is that the intent was that line's supposed to be in that easement. It was granted to him by that property owner. It's close, but it's not exact. So I don't know if there'll be a problem there. You know what I mean? But what I do know is it doesn't seem to align quite right. So that's if Mr. Penner and Mr. Brennan are willing to play ball with us, then maybe we can wait on that. It wouldn't cost that much to have my guys record it, but it would have to be signed off and everything. And so whether we do that now or after the fact would be up to you as how you want to do that. The other issues are town's issuing of street cut permits, and again, Dan, you and I talked about this. Do you have a street cut permit that you issue, or?
I don't believe we do. I think we have one in the black book. I'll have to double check that, and I'll do that before you leave here on.
Okay, because the only permit we're getting for this job is the NDOT right-of-way permit, because we may be working in there right-of-way on a couple of these manholes. We don't need an item construction permit because we're not really changing the capacity of the sewer or anything like that. We're not realigning it. We're basically just performing maintenance on it. Typically, we say in our specs that any local permits, like street cut permits, the contractor has to get from the county or the town. And I was simply asking, is there a permit for them to get? And so and also be a heads up when the contractor comes in and asks, hey, where do I get a street cut permit? You know, so. And the other item was this manhole step replacement. We've noticed in a lot of these manholes, and some of what Wessler was calling for would be step replacement. Do you even want to replace the steps in a manhole? I mean, a lot of towns that go in there do away with the steps, and I'm just, it's more of a technical question for you guys. it's not a big item, there's not a lot of them, but, you know, going into a manhole is considered confined space entry. You're supposed to have breathing and a harness and all that, and they go down. A lot of people that do that have their own ladders, so do we want to waste time and effort trying to replace old manhole steps? And again, I would put that back to you guys. It's not a big item. There's only, I think, 3 or 4 of them in our manholes that we're calling for it to be replaced.
They had a winch system that they
Yeah.
lowered their right
Yeah.
on the manhole with.
Yeah, so it's, I almost hate to bother you with it, because it's not a big deal, but if we don't, I don't want someone to say, hey, where's the manhole steps, you know? So,
Other donations?
I don't know if you have an opinion on that, George, or,
I would say just not worry with it.
okay,
I've not been down there and I don't think Dan's been in them, so
right.
it's safer to put a winch in and hoist somebody down than it is to worry about slipping and falling on a set of steps.
I agree, yeah, or one that gets rotted out or something that,
I would say no, I wouldn't wanna trust it anyway.
okay,
I would negate say no. Spend that with on.
okay. And so then, as far as those items of discussion, that's what I had. I don't know if there's others on your end. Sounds like if you have any other items of discussion that you wanna talk about on the project in general. It seems like the one would be the crop damage, right, and the timing on that.
Well, I was just curious, it sounds like it would be much simpler just to pay the farmer who's growing the crops for any damage we might do than to try and move
I think
things
so.
around that.
I
Just,
think that would
I
create a
was
lot
just curious about
yeah.
what the trouble would be, and it sounds like it's more bothersome to try and move it.
Cause we push that chunk back, as you say, way back till
Right.
the winter, and then you'd have to come back again, so you'd be paying more than I think you'd pay for
Yeah.
crop damage, you know? Okay,
I know that all of these steps are going to be helpful, just from when IDEM did their most recent inspection. They really focused on the I&I, and they want to know what we're doing. So the more details that we can continue to provide, I can keep feeding back to them about these.
Yes.
These are the steps we're making to improve our collection system, and
right, and the hope is that, we can knock some of the I&I down, and that, I think we reported before, I think in your rate structure that was done, there's a little bit of money in there for the town to continue to do a little bit of rehab after this project, and if I'm not mistaken, there was some, in that rate, there's, I don't know what the dollar amount was, but it's maybe $50,000 a year, something like that. There was something that they could do, so if you're looking at that rate structure should provide enough money that you could do some additional rehab as you go along, because like I say, we're not gonna be able to get all of it, and when we originally did it, we looked at, well, let's try to get 20%. That 20% puts us around $850,000 in terms of a project, and that's kind of what we're shooting here. We're kind of laying on a menu of things we want done. Contractor's gonna give us his cost, and then depending on how it bids, maybe we can do a little bit more, maybe we can do a little less. But
now I know the state, with getting an SRF loan, the state requires an asset management plan. Is that something that can go in that asset management plan of, here's the next step that you would want to address, and then in 2022, 2023, something that would spell that out for us so that it won't be a mystery or
no, that's a very
needing
good,
a crystal ball to figure out where to go next?
no, I think that's exactly right. Because you don't have any pump stations in town, do it? So all
Right.
you've got is the plant and the gravity sewer, and what'll be good is we've got this now, and this kind of, there's a whole schedule here. So when we after it's bid, you can use that. You can use what wasn't done to kind of populate your asset management plan in terms of manhole rehab, and we can help you with that as well. We can give you that information and so forth.
That's our scope.
Yeah, okay, oh, right, okay.
We're doing the AMP for you.
Okay, yeah. So we can get that, so all this work is kind of set up for whatever we can do with the bid, we'll do. Whatever we can't do with the bid, we can put into your asset management plan. You know what I mean? And then you can just follow it along, and we can kind of guide you, year 1 do this, year 2 do this, and it speaks to, the idea is to get rid of as much first of all, lining and fixing your manholes will extend their useful life, right? It'll extend the pipe's life, it'll extend the manhole life, frames and covers, same thing. Replacing the laterals back to the property line will help that. So you're extending the life of your system, and then the other benefit is you're getting rid of as much of the extraneous water as you can, and that you don't pay to treat it, you don't overrun your plant, and that kind of thing, right? So that's kind of the gist of what this project will be, and the bidding schedule, as you know, we've talked about, is that's what our plan would be. I think, and as long as there's no objections to that, we'll go ahead and get the advertisement in Monday when we get back from the break. It'll advertise Wednesday the 6th, Wednesday the 13th, and as Darren mentioned, the pre-bid meeting will be a virtual pre-bid meeting, 11 a.m. January 20th. And then bids would be received on Groundhog Day, I guess that's what I'm calling it, Groundhog Day. If he sees a shadow, it should be a good bid. And then what we normally would do is we'll just open the bids, read them aloud, and take them under advisement, right? And we're not, now, Darren, that's not gonna be virtual, is it, or?
It can be one or the other. I mean,
Yeah. I mean, that's.
Normally, the pre-bid would be more attended by contractors and whatnot. The bid opening would just be whoever submitted a bid. If we get 3 bids, you probably won't have 3 people in the audience, is the reality of that. So I think we could probably hold that in person in this building, just as long as it's spread out and whatnot. If that's okay with council.
Yeah, and it's really pretty brief. I mean, you open, you wait till the time, you bring them in,
15 minutes,
open them, and you read them out, and you say, okay, thanks, we're gonna take them under advisement. And then as I said, the next step would, we review them, look at who's the contractors are, make sure they're reputable, we check references. We'll put together a certified bid tab, and as I say, I'm gonna leave you this spec that you can look at. There's, I mean, it's a long thing, and I didn't wanna go through all this today, but there is a bid tab under section 00400, and if you care to look at it, you're welcome to look at it. And we'll populate all that. We'll bring you the bid tab. We'll bring you our letter of recommendation and so forth as to what we think you should do. We can discuss it with you, obviously, and then we've got to get that stuff over to, assuming it all goes the way we hope it goes, and I think it will. I guess we'd have to be here at your February meeting, get you to approve the bids, and get the stuff over to Dean Rogers at Baker Tilly. He'll then forward that stuff to the Indiana Finance Authority and SRF such that we can get that loan closing before March 31st, which we should be able to do, I think. So, I mean, that's SRF's on board with the schedule. It's the same schedule we had in the PER, so we're moving right ahead here. And so then, as we were talking, then this, you know, I anticipate once we have that loan closing, generally that's when we, if it's not that day, very, very soon after, we give a notice, we've awarded the contract, we give a notice to the contractor to proceed, and that starts his clock running, right? So then he's gonna get out here. So I would assume that he would, you know, be out here sometime in April, you know, sometime maybe early to mid-April, that he'd start his work, and then he would proceed through. And so that's why this whole crop thing is, we're gonna be right smack dab in the middle of that season when we're doing that work, so. Anyways, that's the plan. So that's all I have unless there's questions.
Any questions?
Yeah.
Okay.
S1 sewer manhole cover, that's right there on the sidewalk. Right there before you get to the curb.
Which one?
S1.
S1.
Yeah, right. It's up about this high on one side, sticking up. That's one of them they went through and everything, but they didn't put it back down, and that's, somebody can definitely trip on that.
Could you say that again? Which one? S1?
S as in sewer, one.
Yeah.
Right, but just as you go around the curve there,
Is it
just
called?
past my back driveway, there's a gravel driveway, and on the sidewalk, there's a sanitary sewer manhole lid there. That's S1.
You have to point that out to me, because I'm not seeing it. I don't think there was any S manhole.
Right there. Yeah, right here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Oh, B1 and,
Oh, is it B?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, B1, yeah, okay.
Okay.
What do you say, that's,
The manhole covers up about, on one side, about that much.
Okay.
Enough, it needs to be knocked back down. I couldn't do it with my feet, I tried.
Okay,
And a lot of people walk on that sidewalk, so.
all right, so we're gonna get that set to grade, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
I had one question. You started talking in the beginning about one of the manholes are being crushed or cracked a little bit. I thought you said A1 down in the field towards the,
Yeah,
I looked it up, that's only 4 feet deep.
right.
So could some of the ag equipment that may be going over that cause that and then cause it in the future?
What I said was that pipe,
Mhm.
that pipe, as it comes into the, just before it comes into the plant, it's right about, it's like at 100 and, if I remember right, from A1 TVing towards the plant, at 166 feet, there's a cracked pipe. There's a piece of pipe that's
Oh, okay.
fallen in. So that would be removed. It's not bad enough that we would have to repair. It looks like that can be, it's almost like a lateral. It almost looks like they can cut that out and then they'll line around it.
Okay.
Now we do have, and to your point, we do have an item in there in the bid form. Well, we have a statement in there that what we call a thing called a point repair. If for some reason when they get in there and they find something, and we've looked at most of this stuff, but this is a good example. We think that line they can knock that out and just line it. And that liner that they use, that thing is very, very stout. When that cures in place, that is hard and as strong as the pipe. It's if I brought a section in, I mean, it's really quite impressive. But if for some reason they didn't feel they could line it because that thing, when they break it, it breaks that pipe, then they would have to do what's called a point repair. They have to go out and dig it up and all that. Now that would be a change order, right? So we'd have to negotiate the change order if we wanted them to do it, and I think we would want them to do it if your pipe collapsed and all that. We don't know what those prices are. We'd have to negotiate that at the time of it, and that's part of why we did this initial TVing to see if we're going to run into a lot of that. It doesn't look like we're going to run into a lot of that. So but there's always something. When we recommend what these bids are and what we want you to do, we'll have to hold back about 5% contingency for just in cases, right? When we close on that loan to make sure we've got some money in case something happens that we didn't anticipate.
Right.
Okay.
Well, my question was, I know they design ag equipment to be, because they don't want it sinking down in the field.
Right.
But is it possible that that being at 4 feet deep there, that some of the ag equipment, if it was the ground was soft enough, could cause a problem with the future pipe?
I suppose. I mean, it could have been, it could have settled initially or whatever, and the combination thereof, over the years. I mean, they've got, in the field there, they've got all those manholes are down like 2 feet, like, normally you don't like to have your manholes that far down, but they're down there so that the farmer doesn't hit them with
the
equipment
disc and
and so
stuff
forth.
like
So
that.
I think we leave them there because the other option would be to bring them up and put them above ground. But then that, he has to farm around all that stuff, and I don't know that you want to do that at this point.
And they might, being above ground might cause more of a chance for them to be damaged
Get
than
hit and stuff
under.
like that.
So,
And when you see them on some fields, you see them, right, they're usually, you can put bollards around them or stuff like that, but then there's, in this nice big field, then there's a bunch of grass and stuff where they can't get to, he's gotta go around it, so.
I was just curious about
Yeah.
that, if depth was a problem.
Any other questions? Steve?
No.
Okay. Jenny? All right.
Maybe one more question.
Okay.
Was there any section that looked worse overall than any other section?
Well, the one that I recall is the is that A1. I mean, that one had the pipe hanging down, you know, like the piece of pipe that was cracked and hanging down. I personally looked at a good chunk of them. One of my other engineers looked at the rest of them. But I guess I would say no, and that was kind of my, they look, I think rehab is appropriate, but it doesn't look like, and I would tell you, and that was the point here, is if there was something, part of what the scheme on the rehab is to try to stay continuous. You know, like if you're stopping water here, that water is coming this way. It's following that sewer trench down. So if we can rehab this and make this as tight as we can as we go up here, the chances of being effective, I think, are greater than if we did a little bit here, a little bit here, a little bit here, and a little bit here. So we've tried to create these sections that are contiguous with each other, and we're going to try, like, for example, if we can do all in this A, these pieces that we're not calling for, you already lined there a couple of years ago. It's going back about 15 years now, but and they didn't look too bad. I mean, they got a liner in them and so forth. And then we would continue on A. So if we did all of this and all of A, then we would create, you know, we would get that whole section. And then from there we pick up again here. We do another piece. As you come over here, you know, the school is over here. But some of these lines have been rehabbed already, you know, and some of them are PVC, like these pieces up here are PVC. This little piece and this little piece are old vitrified clay, so we're saying, well, let's fix those if we can, you know, and so on and so forth. So we're just trying to keep it contiguous. It could all, like again, we don't know on Swanson's property, for example, we don't know we didn't TV that this time around, but I thought that there was some previous information.
Running at the door.
It wasn't that, you know, again, it wasn't that bad. I mean, so I think from what we've seen, it all is it's moderate. There's nothing one section over another.
There's no overall
Yeah.
section of town that's worse than the others.
I'm gonna say most of the lines on 39, the state went through, they replaced a lot with PVC.
Yeah.
They lateral stuff that they put.
Okay. Well, yeah, so I mean, just to kind of complete that, and to your point, like this neighborhood up here, up in the northwest section, was all newer vitrified clay. Dan and I talked about this early on. It's like, I said vitrified, PVC pipe. We felt like, well, we don't have enough money. Let's not waste our time looking at that. Now, we did find there are some manholes that were not located. We found a couple, and we're calling for those that were not found to be found, and so that we'll know where they are and all that kind of stuff. So that's being done, but our attention is kind of down in, you know, the older part of the system. Again, the goal would be is to try to get as much rehab for the money you got in there, and then from there we can go on with your asset management plan to get the rest of it, or to continue on. So. I think the one thing I'm taking away is that we probably ought to contact Penner and Brenneman, make them aware of this and that, and kind of get their input on it to make sure there's no big issue or something, so we make sure that everybody's on board with it. Talk with them a little bit. Okay.
You gonna take care of that? You know,
Yeah, I'll go over dinner, and then bring them in, just let them know what's gonna happen, figure out how they want to do it.
Yeah, and if there's any pushback, I mean, we can figure out.
Yeah.
You know, if worse came to worse, we could still bid it the way we do it and just not do that work if we had to. But I personally think that would be a section you'd want to. That's an important piece to get to.
I'm sure they'll be on board with it, so.
Do you feel like that in the timetable of his planning season, that there would be time, like, if you did it in spring, then would he be able to use the field in late fall or early?
Well, that's a good point.
Late summer, early
If
fall.
we could get them going, I mean, you know, again, I'm not the farmer here, but I know that depending on weather, sometimes it pushes back the planning a little bit. But I suppose if it's really bad and wet, the contractor's probably not gonna go on there as well. So, but I guess the one potential thing would be is if we got the contractor going early, we could put something in there that we, you know, if you could do that line first, ahead of the planting, that would be a win for both. If he could get in there, line it, and get his work done before he comes in and plants it,
Yeah,
then that'd be great.
yeah.
But I don't
I'm
know.
just sure it's probably a question that Bob's gonna have whenever you
There'll
talk
be
to
some
him.
back and forth, so we'll
Yeah,
figure it out and get
yeah.
some details.
I think as long as they know there's some protection there with him, if he's gonna do his work and we go in there and wreck some of his crops, they get some compensation for it, probably get a little bit more cooperative.
George, do you mind copying me on the email you send to them?
Yeah, I'm probably gonna do a face-to-face verbal, and I'll wrap up with an email.
Okay,
like that.
just so we have a paper
Yeah,
trail that
Yeah,
this was agreed upon.
oh, for sure.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Anything else from the group?
I do need these two forms signed. Doug, I think since you're the president, I think you should sign them and then get them notarized. This is the consultant consent form for the NDOT permit and the permit fee waiver form. So, if I can.
Okay.
And I'll send you copies of them when we get, because we have to file all this stuff electronically, so
Right.
I think you're the applicant, printed name and date, and then we'll have, get notarized, and then similarly over here, it's just signature of the applicant,
Okay.
okay?
All right. Any consensus on adjourning then, since we've got all of the information on it?
I make a motion, we adjourn.
Good for that? All right, we will adjourn the meeting. Thank you very much. 10:52.